Today, we're looking at Diamine Sargasso Sea. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Diamine Sargasso Sea is a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Pilot Metropolitan with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I stand corrected on this one. The one on the right is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is that blue pushes its way straight up. This is a true prime blue. It doesn't look like any mixes of any other colors. It doesn't flee from the water. It's staying behind all the way, and it's kind of dark as it's moving its way up. The one on the left, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it is much darker all the way up, and the line across the bottom is much more there and not running away. It looks like it might have some hold on. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. Now, I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it really becomes fuzzy. All of it becomes fuzzy, and that's going to make me say no, I would not use this in a note-taking situation. It definitely is reactivating and pushing all over the place, which makes some of the result of the blue, or of the water, a little surprising. Water pulled a lot of the ink off the page, but left a lot of blue behind. Now that does stand a little bit with what we saw in the second chromatography, but there's a lot more left from what I expected on the highlighter. Pen flush is basically doing what water does. It's not doing a whole lot more. In fact, when I blotted it up, you even see more of the blue that got put back down. But we're not seeing the white of the paper coming through, which makes me feel like it might not have enough to get this out of your pen. Now, if you have to use a 1/3 bleach solution, it does completely remove it from the page. It should completely remove it from your pen. Just wash your pen out with water well when you're done so you don't rust your metal parts. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine Sargasso Sea has a viscosity of 2.91, just outside of normal, just barely to the dry side of normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine Sargasso Sea has an average dry time of 19 seconds, making it normal. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. That smudge up there is from me, where I don't think this came through. And I think it got on there when I had it all paper clipped together. That's not the ink performing badly. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading, 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. In a smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. We get no bleeding, and of course we get ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine looks a slight bit lighter as a tone, about 1 or 2 tones different, lighter. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 21 seconds to dry.
The medium is the same tone as the 1.1, so it is that 1 or 2 tones darker than the extra fine. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 26 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. The smear test, you could recover this, even on Tomoe River, if you smeared while you were writing. Rhodia, we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. On camera, it's looking slightly lighter, but when I fold the paper over and really look at it like this, I see the same tones. I see the same tone from one into the other, and that's how I'm saying it's the same tone. The extra fine has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 16 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 19 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both have no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. The smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. And this is what I'm talking about in some videos where I say that boring ink. It is very predictable, and boring is not a bad thing. Boring means I know exactly what I'm going to get, and this looks like it's basically the same tone all the time. We saw one time it wasn't, and that can be a great thing when that's the color you want. Original Crown Mill, this is a nice laid paper. It did not enjoy this ink. The ink bled into it a little heavy, but it did not bleed through it. Ignoring the scrubby spot. Grab up. Uh-oh. Pencil. There we go. It did go in kind of deep in some spots. Now, this spotting wouldn't stop you from using the back of the page. It wouldn't. It doesn't touch the page underneath. It's perfectly fine, perfectly well behaved. It just gets deep into this paper. This paper didn't enjoy this ink as much. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading. The extra fine is like a tone lighter, just a tone, slightest bit. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is just that tone darker than extra fine. Back to what we saw with the 1.1 in tone. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. And the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. White Lines paper. Did not enjoy this ink, but White Lines paper is not made to use really both sides. It's really a very good note-taking where you transfer everything over to digital very quickly. It bleeds in very heavy. It does not bleed all the way through the page. It does not touch the page underneath, but you could not use the back of the page. Severe ghosting. The 1.1 has feathering all over it. Not every single thing. It's just very, very constant. So like Sargasso, a lot of feathering right there. Diamine, the D doesn't have it. The IA has feathering. The M doesn't. The INE does. So there's only a couple spots without some of the feathering. Otherwise, this is not particularly happy here. No halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 5 seconds to dry. Performed very well here. Despite the bleeding, very heavy into the page. Despite that, it performed very well here. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. The medium has no spread. It has minor feathering intermittently. So it's not all over it, but the word dry has a bunch of tiny little feathers all over it. The word lazy has a bunch of tiny little feathers all over it. The word brown has a bunch of tiny little feathers all over it, but that's all for the feathering, and they're tiny. It doesn't make it unusable and blurry like it's kind of doing with the 1.1. No halo, no sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. In a smear test, you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. P. Berger, it's a French rule, student paper. It's rather thin. You see it bled very heavily into the page. It did not come through the page. It did not touch the page underneath. But you could not use the back of the page. No way. The 1.1 has feathering, has spread, lots of it. The feathering's gross. No halo, sheen, or shade. I'm going to move on from that one. That's bad. The extra fine. The extra fine has no feathering at all. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 6 seconds to dry. Same tone as the 1.1. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. The medium has spread, has a lot of tiny feathers all over. The word quick is absolutely blurry. The is absolutely blurry, but brown is not too bad. Fox is blurry. Over is not too bad. Lazy and dog, blurry. 8 seconds, no halo, sheen, or shade, 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing, and that is all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine Sargasso Sea, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Being a bright blue, I wanted a very nice shading brown that goes with it. I chose Noodler's Kiowa Pecan. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Diamine's Sargasso Sea? This is a very dark, professional looking blue that could hide the fact that you are using a fountain pen. And I don't really like that it's such a normal blue that you would see from the roller balls. Now, there's nothing wrong with the blue itself. Just as a fountain pen user, I would like my ink to have a little bit more personality than this is bringing out personally. Thanks for watching.